as we are looking ahead to COP30, it's inspiring to see how Brazil is driving the strong momentum, continuing leadership, strengthening the partnership, and the concrete implementation will be key to deliver delivering on the global pledge. So I will invite His Excellency Adalberto to talk about the COP30 priorities. Your Excellency.
Hello everybody again. I hope we all had a good lunch so that we can start this afternoon session. So on this session we'll talk a little bit about how we see the cooling priorities and the expected outcomes that would be debated throughout COP30 in Brazil. I think one of our first ideas is to have a second annual ministerial of the cooling pledge. I think we already have indication from the COP presidency and all the stakeholders to have it. We know that some delegations are still concerned about, accommodations, logistics, everything in Belém, and indeed it will be challenging to have too many people, but for a small delegation, especially with the ministers that will be there already, I think it will be perfectly possible. Brazil will launch also some initiatives about hotels and lodging and more places for people to stay, so this is not going to be a problem. We also would like to see, as COP presidency, that passive cooling enters as one of the key adaptation measures for extreme heat. This is something that is very important also for us. We also believe that finance will be one of the cornerstones of the progress for the pledge. We saw that the UN adaptation report showed there is a big gap in financing for developing countries. So we know that, for example, in 2022, only 28 billion was mobilized compared to the more than 360 billion that would be required. So we want to debate how to scale up financing, how to debate further technology transfer and supporting the cooling commitments, especially under the vulnerable sectors like health, agriculture, and urban planning. So as we emphasize equity and resiliency and the importance for cooling access for communities, especially the ones on most risk of heat. So today we have more than 1.2 billion people that are facing risk in health, productivity, nutritional issues because of the lack of accessible and adequate cooling. So some of the surveys show that if we don't address this challenge, we can have more than 3.5 billion people lacking in a risk by 2030. So with that in mind, here we have in the table some of the COP30 deliverables, and I will start the first one with the idea that we would like to propose to all the board members here for approval and further debate to launch as part of Multirão, Global Multirão. Multirão is an indigenous language in Brazil from Tupi indigenous community, which is called collective efforts. Multirão is how you gather everybody from the community to harvest agriculture, how you gather everybody in the community to build a new house. It's how you gather people together to work on something. I bet you have in your own language similar, especially the African countries have a very similar approach to how collective efforts are done throughout the community. So our idea as part of these collective efforts is to bring cities to implement the pledge while supporting one another in this process. So each of the countries that are part of the pledge could invite and support and encourage their own cities to join the initiative. And the participant cities would receive a tailored technical assistance support package covering heat assessment, project preparation, investment pipeline, financing strategies, training, and communication. So the signatory countries will, of course, convene and bring the cities, but we could also have other stakeholders bringing cities. For example, the cities network. We can count on C40, ICLEI, Metropolis, Mercosurales, like all the networks which already work. UN Habitat, for sure, will be a very important partner here. World Bank, IDB, all the development banks, and especially bringing the Secretary General office to support us in this process, because as we all know, Gutierrez has been talking about extreme heat for many different opportunities. So the idea would be that cities right now, as they face even double the amount of the global average rate because of rapid urbanization and the urban heat island effect, cities will definitely be the hubs for innovation to deliver the cooling solution. And we could talk about cool roofs, green walls and canopies, shading, district cooling roof, green walls, different ideas. So as city would express interest in the Beat the Heat in cities, then the initiative would welcome the proposal to engage the cities. We would have the cities on board with the technical support. Then hopefully, when we arrive in Belém, we could even make some further announcements, because we're already going to have all the cities on board. We'll get all the stakeholders that can help, from UNEP, UN Habitat, World Bank, C40, Bloomberg, Google, IBM, everybody will help all the cities. Then maybe we can launch even something further there. Perhaps an epic city chapter that would help cities to implement. So perhaps our colleagues from Italy, from Germany can help us into this process to be able to help us to find partners that could do it. This could be one idea. So right now, this would be one of the first probably announcements on the action agenda. If the board believes this is a good idea, we would have to speed up as fast as possible in order to launch this and have the possibilities that the mayor would help us. So our idea would be that we would use these remaining days in June, if the board accepts, to convene meetings with all the stakeholders, have a joint letter, a call to action of Beat the Heat, to invite the cities in July, maximum. Probably in August, we'll partner with 10, 20, I don't know how many countries we would, but to get as much more cities on board, see how many cities we are able to support, have these hotspots and project identification assessments. Then by September, we would convene the foundations to highlight the Beat the Heat and the city innovation on the United Nations Climate Week. Then by October, we'll have CHAMP and, before the COP and all the partners to announce the cities. Some cities, maybe we can do the work before and announce the results. In some cities, some other we announce them to get together. Then we will use especially the C40 meeting, not in Brasilia, sorry, it would be in Rio. Okay, Rio de Janeiro will have this big meeting of the C40 cities. We estimate that maybe 300 cities could join the C40 Summit, all the big mayors from big cities in the world, and also we want to bring a lot of Brazilian cities there. So we could launch this 1 week before, so in the beginning of November, before COP30. Then we would have a delegation of mayors from this launch that would go to Belém and be part of the Beat the Heat official announcements. So, well, this would be the first ideas. So before we move into the other deliverables, I would like to open the floor for comments from partners, countries, if you all think this is a good idea, if it makes sense, and if we are all on board here to debate as the coalition board if this would be a good project. Well, I see no hands, so I guess everybody liked the idea, right? That's how we approve. I chair a couple of boards in Brazil, like especially the chemical safety one, that we are doing a lot of big and difficult debates, and I always do like this. Who agrees it stays like it is? Approved. Okay, so, no, I'm joking, I don't do that. No, I do sometimes, but not always. But seriously, so I understand that everybody liked the idea. Well, urban heat is important. Beat the heat. It looks cool, you know, it's like a nice thing. We have COP30 coming, you know, Brazil and India will be the first guys there for sure because we are suffering a lot, and I guess everybody else around the world. Okay, so then I understand that the board has agreed on this proposal. So now you would give us, as Brazilian presidency, together with UNEP and the Secretariat of Cooling, we would invite as much partners as possible so that we can plan this, and we will update the board later on the next steps. Then the second, could go back two, please, so I can read, just to say the second one. So then, as we help the cities to do the identification of the urban heat islands, how they're going to be affected, somehow we will help them to do projects and identification, what are the priorities and projects that they can do in order to reduce those urban heats. So then we would try to finalize for COP30 in the future. We don't know very much how it would be, maybe this epic city approach or something else, to help cities and governments to implement nature-based passive cooling projects. As I said earlier, Brazil just launched a bid of $25 million to do 25 projects, 1 million each, in each cities of Brazil, different areas, different biomes, different realities. So we hope to have all these projects already moving by COP30. So we are going to have from our side examples of 25 cities in Brazil implementing it. And I'm pretty positive that almost all countries here have projects that were done on nature-based solutions. So then we would create something that we can help the implementation. And the third part of the C4, the COP30 deliverables, implementation of the cooling pledge we would do there would be thinking about how to increase and improve the public procurement of low GWP, high efficiency cooling technologies in public building. So we don't want to have for COP30 commitments or pledges, because we already have a lot of these initiatives. In COP28 in Dubai, we launched a lot of very important pledges. So Brazilian COP presidency wants to make an assessment of the pledges and help to further implement the pledges. So we are not looking for a new pledge on how public buildings will purchase high efficient cooling technology. But we'll have to find a way to show what's happening already on the ground and get further action to leverage and speed up that process. So I would also open up for debate later for all the members here at the coalition for us to think about together how we can do it. Because each country has its own legislation, each country has its own public procurement process. In the case of Brazil, we were able to create some legislations that can prioritize purchase of some specific technologies or because based on energy efficiency or carbon footprint, maybe not all the countries have, but we need to think collectively how to implement. Please, the following, go back to the last, one more please. So, on the road to COP, then, these are the announcements, let's say, that the implementation agenda we would focus on. So the first will be the implementation drive for the subnational action, the Beat the Heat in Cities campaign, as we announced. The second annual high-level ministerial for the Global Cooling Pledge at COP30. Also the launch of the Global Cooling Watch 2025 and the annual Global Cooling Pledge Progress Report 2025. We just had these decisions about the implementation of the GST, as I mentioned in the beginning. So we have the pavilions, we have all the different actions on the official negotiation and agenda. And it would be very good if we, as a coalition, would also write down recommendations for our countries to use this as the part of the official negotiation. You all remember that adaptation, indicators for adaptation is a big part of the negotiation. We also have fair transition. Well, the mandate is not to finish on this COP, but because this is so important for Brazil and developing countries, we want to really debate fair transition in this process. We also have the financing part of it. And we also have the NDC's evaluation to see if we are moving on the right direction or not. So I think the coalition will contribute a lot along with other UNEP and other UN system partners and coalitions in order to make part of this assessment. So I think this is this last slide, right? Yes. So then we have this proposal also as an action plan to try to expand the signatories to get to 100 countries, national countries. We do have also some subnational governments, as we've seen here, from India, from Brazil, São Paulo, and others. So we'll do this joint outreach approach, and we hope we can have this co-signed letter with the COP presidency, UNEP, and all the partners so that we can move in this direction. Next one. Okay, so now I would like to open up the floor to our members here at the board to talk a little bit about what you heard from our proposals here on the key priorities for COP30, how the ministerial roundtable process could support your efforts domestically and regionally. What opportunities do you all see in engaging with Beat the Heat in Cities, initiatives in the run-up to COP30, in alignment with your national and urban cooling priorities? And the third and most important question, if you're willing to invite cities from your country to engage them in this initiative, and if we can count on the support of the federal governments as well as the subnational regional governments to bring the mayors on board, because we need the mayors here in order to engage for urban Beat the Heat in cities. So I'd like to pass here. I don't know if Gunara or the Secretariat would like to make any comments. If not, I would open up the floor to our colleagues, board members, if you can say something about these ideas. Okay, we start with UK.
Thanks, Adalberto. For me, this looks really exciting, and it feels like, looking back a year, we did really well, but looking forward to this year, it looks like we're really motoring. So thanks very much for sharing that with us. Just had a couple of questions that may help us. So firstly, with clarification, were you looking for 10 country/cities, so 10 in total, combinations, or 10 per country, which may be tricky by this time scale. And secondly, would you imagine that you would be writing directly to us from the COP presidency, inviting us to invite our cities, which would probably help us quite a bit if you were to?
Yes, first, yes, our goal is to have a letter signed by the president from COP and also Inger Anderson, inviting the countries to support this engagement with the cities. Personally, I think we could bring 500 mayors easily, you know, because all mayors around the world, they have to deal with urban heat. They don't know where to start, but we don't know how much of our capacity to support. So this idea of having initially 10 countries or cities is just to have something that we would move faster, to have something to show. And then at least in a pipeline of 100, 200, 500. My goal is to bring all these mayors as possible to Rio for this beautiful picture in the Museum of Tomorrow with Corcovado on the side, the sunset in Rio and all the mayors together. When we had the C40 summit there, I used to work for the C40 for 8 years before, and we used to do these big pictures with mayors, as we did in the Paris Agreement. Remember at the City Hall in Paris, 1,000 mayors there. It wasn't 1,000, but well, we said it was 1,000. But everybody there taking the picture, it's a way to show to the federal governments that the subnational are there. They're doing, you know, showing that the multilateral governance structure is working. We're going to have a lot of US mayors. I talked to the Minister of Environment from China that we can have a lot of Chinese mayors. We need to engage a lot of the Indian mayors, because if we bring all these big mayors there, perhaps we would have 30% of the global population, 50% of the emissions, 60. So it will be a very bold political movement from the subnational demanding the countries to do what they have to do. Because mayors are the ones that suffer first the impacts of climate change. And when the disasters happen, the floods, landslides, heat islands, tropical diseases, everything, it affects mayors first. So we want to give this space for mayors to have their voice heard. Okay. Well, Singapore, then. Yes, Singapore. Ladies first.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the governments of Germany, Italy, and the UAE for co-hosting this meeting, as well as the Pledge co-chairs and the Cool Coalition Secretariat for extensive work in enabling parties to implement the Pledge commitments. Thank you also to the co-chairs, Brazil and UAE, for putting forward an inspiring cooling roadmap. Singapore is proud to be a signatory to the Global Cooling Pledge, and we welcome the COP30 presidency's leadership in advancing implementation, particularly through this Beat the Heat in Cities initiative. As a highly urbanized tropical city-state, Singapore is acutely aware of the risk that rising heat poses to lives, livelihoods, and long-term development. And we also understand the complexity of addressing these risks in a way that is both sustainable and inclusive. And for us, cooling is not a choice, it's essential for health, productivity, and urban resilience. And we stand ready to share our experiences in integrating passive cooling and district cooling solutions within our urban planning framework, including building up modeling capabilities to support intervention planning. And to cover some of the points of discussion that we had earlier today, we welcome the work on tailored technical assistance and blended finance. To share, Singapore has launched the Financing Asia's Transition Partnership, also known as FAST-P. And while FAST-P's core sectors today focus on high emissions infrastructure, like those in power generation, transport, industry, and water, its mandate explicitly includes the built environment, from district energy to large-scale building retrofits. In practice, that means integrated cooling solutions like low-carbon district cooling expansions and cool materials installations can be packaged under FAST-P financings, along solar, waste-to-energy, or water recycling projects. The Global Cooling Pledge's credibility hinges on our collective ability to show results. In that respect, we support the development of the annual Global Cooling Progress Report and urge that cities be empowered with the tools and partnerships to report transparently and to share the lessons learned. And Singapore also looks forward to contributing to the broader discussions under the Global Goal on Adaptation, where sustainable cooling should be recognized as both a life-saving adaptation measure and a mitigation opportunity. Looking forward, Singapore warmly invites the COP30 Presidency and Global Cooling Pledge Secretariat to join us for a joint program on heat resilience and sustainable cooling at the COP30 Singapore Pavilion, providing a platform for collaboration and knowledge exchange. And we remain open to working with others to co-develop practical high-impact solutions, both within our region and beyond. The Global Cooling Pledge and the COP30 roadmap has given us the direction to scale sustainable cooling, and now we must match it with delivery. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Singapore, we definitely count on Singapore's status as a country and also a city that have been a global leader in environment for many, many years. All of us are always admire when we visit and see the solutions that were implemented there. So I'll pass here to my colleague from Germany.
Thank you, and also a couple of reflections on the program you've just been outlining. So first of all, I think it's absolutely crucial, and thanking your leadership, following on what we had from the Emirates in 28 and now going to the COP30, putting cooling right at the center of this COP. It's a matter of mitigation. We just heard about the enormous energy demand, which will be associated with cooling equipment, which will be facing, so it's a matter of emission mitigation, and it's of course a matter of adaptation. So we're bringing with this topic two very, very important issues together on one table. So thank you for driving this agenda forward. On the specific elements, I very much see some very good association with the initiative you've just been outlining, Beat the Heat. I have to admit I have not read fully the concept behind, so I need to dive into this a bit more. Also, I think speaking for Germany more broadly, we would need to see what the whole action agenda looks like. There's certainly more elements to come quite soon. So we're going to assess that across the whole piece, but certainly I think as we have been engaging on this matter here, it would be very surprising to me if we would not continue on doing this in Brazil in November. Especially the elements you've been highlighting in there, so the heat assessment in cities. I think it's just been recently, looking to my colleague here, I think it was just last week that we had an assessment here in Germany for the heat stress in cities, and so we are here in a, of course, admittedly a moderately colder country, but we're feeling those impacts as well, and it's continually rising on the political agenda and the public attention to this topic. So we have this kind of heat stress assessments making the news, a couple of cities where it becomes also here in Germany in summer quite unbearable. We have, and this is also quite a key policy of my ministry, is the kind of passive cooling side with nature-based solutions. So of course that chimes a lot with our agenda as well. So thank you for proposing this agenda on the Beat the Heat initiative, which I see also as kind of part of the cooling pledge as a whole. So we have those commitments in there in some or the other way also. So it's a kind of an emphasis of focusing on elements. So the thing is, this is very good. So yeah, I think in summary, like a very positive attitude towards what you've just been presenting. I think Germany can be a partner in that. How many mayors I can convince coming to Brazil, but I think with this kind of selling points you've just been giving of the sunset, etc., we might be quite optimistic on that note. But there, thank you.
Thank you, Germany. And I still didn't said anything about the samba and, the beach and the good part of Rio, which will be part of the whole package, but we're getting into there. And somehow we feel that the action agenda as an opportunity to kind of reevaluate all the voluntary commitments, all the pledges and actions that were done by the private sector, by governments. I think we are going to have to integrate a lot of these efforts with CHAMP, which is one of the initiatives that was launched also in Dubai at COP28, which for me are one of the most important ones, the Coalition for High Ambition Multi-Level Partnership. We added this to our NDC. Brazilian NDC now for the first time has mandate for governors and mayors. Our action plan on climate have reduction targets for mayors, for city level, on transportation, on energy, on waste. So it's a way to really involve them. And as I mentioned before, I think one of the most successful projects we had in Brazil last year was the creation of this Green Resilient Cities program that have on the board 1/3 of the votes is federal, 1/3 is city and state, and 1/3 is civil society. So by integrating the agenda of Ministry of Cities, Ministry of Environment and Science and Technology, now we are seeing that's much easier to deliver. We are seeing the coordination of the stakeholders. So I really think that our cooling coalition, together with CHAMP, and also we hope to do something together on CCAC, Climate and Clean Air Coalition, which Brazil is proud of co-host, co-chair with UK. So we are also thinking about doing something similar, urban heat, for mayors to commit on reducing methane reduction from waste. We also want to have a lot of mayors there. We have the law, the low organic waste reduction, which in the case of Brazil, we already brought almost all the big cities in Brazil. So it's important that somehow we can move on that direction, not only to reinforce multilateralism through subnational diplomacy, but also to create the multilateral climate cooperation that we all need. So I'll pass first to Tamunadu, then later to São Paulo.
Thank you, Chair. As you rightly said, that the cities have to be in focus, and for a state like Tamil Nadu, which is rapidly urbanizing, presently it's been estimated to be 52% urbanized. So we are also serious about how the heat action plan is being worked out for the cities. And for the information of the Chair and all the countries here, we have worked out heat action plan for hence cities in the state. And we would definitely be happy to participate and to bring the cities to join hands in working together. Having said that, we have also included the urban heat island assessment at the cities into the heat action plan. And Chennai is one city which has got and dedicated action plan, not just for heat, but all other climatic matters, for which C40 had supported the city in also getting this document prepared. And a lot of action has been already initiated. And this heat action, and in terms of heat island assessments, we have did it up to the ward level in the cities. So even a small ward, we would be able to know in which degree of heat vulnerability the particular area is under. So a lot of local level actions has been initiated, and I totally support and welcome the proposal for action at the city level. I'm sure that we'll be able to bring in a lot of people to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's crucial that the regional governments are on board. Brazil had less than 30 cities with climate adaptation plans until last year, 27 cities only. So we launched this new Adapt Cities initiative at the federal level to finance 270 plans. Brazil has 27 states, so 10 per. But we made it mandatory that the application came from the state with the 10 cities that they selected. Then when we offered to the governors, they said, no, we want to double. So they will finance more 10. So then suddenly we went from 27 to 560 climate adaptation plan because of the leadership of the subnational, we call states, also states. I know some people call provinces or regional, I don't know. But it's very important. So we are happy to see, and I think we need to think stronger how to get to the states. I also hear a big movement coming from states, for example, at the United States of America to mobilize, all the climate action. So I think it will be very important for us to see how we do it. So now I'll pass the floor to my colleague from São Paulo.
I think now could be a nice moment to talk briefly about São Paulo's experience and initiatives. I may use a couple of minutes, if that's okay. So, good afternoon. My name is Pedro Miraldo, and I am an architect. I work in the Department of Green Areas and Environment in São Paulo, Brazil. And I'm here to talk about São Paulo, which is a large and complex city. When compared to countries in terms of territory, there are only a little over 20 countries with an area smaller than São Paulo. But in terms of population, São Paulo is larger than a little over 110 countries. Considering that more than a third of its territory is rural, this relation between population and territory gives us a demographic density that, combined with a history of little action by the public sector in face of disorderly growth and other issues, generates all kinds of problems and challenges that a large city can have, such as social inequality, housing deficit, problems with the health and education systems, urban mobility issues, and in public safety, air pollution, urban drainage, among others. This brief introduction on the reality of São Paulo, albeit superficial, shows that its complexity also applies to the implementation of initiatives such as the Global Cooling Pledge. For example, sometimes the representative who signs a pledge like this is very well intentioned and fully understands the urgency of the matter, but it may be that the technical team that could develop the subject locally is already overwhelmed with their daily tasks and cannot meet the demand without further compromising the public service. Other times, the representative who signs a pledge like this is only seeking political gain, and may be the technical team that could develop and implement the subject doesn't even receive the right set of instructions to do the job, leaving the pledge in a temporary limbo. However, the city of São Paulo is committed to the climate issue, and the actions that I will talk about briefly now show that many of them have a strong relation with the three fronts of the Global Cooling Pledge. So first, São Paulo Climate Action Plan, established in 2021, was developed with the aim of guiding municipal government decisions, considering the impacts of climate change and the need to combat it through practices carried out by the municipality. In addition, it's an instrument for raising awareness and preparing civil society for upcoming transformations. In addition to environmental aspects, the plan covers social and economic aspects, proposing the development of the city of São Paulo in an inclusive and equitable manner. São Paulo Climate Action Plan is an initiative that must be reviewed periodically to incorporate new knowledge and directions. And second, the Declaration of Public Utility, in which Mayor Ricardo Nunes signed 32 decrees this February, declaring as public utility 32 private green areas, with a total area equivalent to the size of the city of Paris, to ensure that another 10.9% of the city territory will be transformed into an environmental preservation area, adding to the current preserved area. The city will have 26% of its territory under the protection of municipal, state, or federal government. So, and third, the goals program. In addition to providing transparency to the City Hall's priority policies, the goals program allows the various departments to have a systemic view of management that avoids overlapping measures, optimizes resources, and facilitates joint implementation. Its scope includes tangible, measurable achievements that can be achieved over a 4-year period. So the goals cover all areas of the municipality's activities, but I will share an example that concerns green areas. So the goals from 2021 until 2024 was to implement 8 new parks and to implement 2 conservation units. And the results show that were implemented 9 parks and 2 conservation units. And now we have another mandate with the same mayor. The goals for 2025 until 2028 are to implement 8 new parks, and apprentices here, we already done 3 of those, and to renovate 25 existing parks. So other São Paulo initiatives worth mentioning are the Municipal Plan for the Conservation and Recovery of the Atlantic Forest, the Municipal Urban Afforestation Plan, the Municipal Plan for Protected Areas, Green Areas and Open Spaces, the Summer Rain Prevention Plan, the Municipal Environmental Education Plan, Operation Zero Fire with the fire detection monitoring system, and also the environmental quota. So finally, some next steps. We still need to develop an action plan to mitigate the heat by 2026, and we need more planning. We could also use some help in mapping out possibilities, in seeking to make the use of super efficient equipment mandatory in public tenders, and above all, in financing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, São Paulo. It's important to see how the leadership of the cities is crucial to deliver all the commitments and the pledges that the federal government does. So I'm very happy to see, how São Paulo has been moving, especially come from the Secretary of Environment, where I had my first job 20 years ago, the Secretary of Environment in São Paulo, at that time when we went from 30 to 100 parks. And now São Paulo is, increasing 10% of the area, which one more Paris size of new parks. That's really good as nature-based solution and cooling strategy. So we're all very happy to see that. So I think now I have Granada and later Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair, and thanks again for the opportunity to react to this particular agenda item with regards to the roadmap to COP30. And I want to commend the initiatives that are currently on the table for taking forward to COP30. But I want to zero in on the Heat in Cities initiative and to examine it maybe from another angle that may be a little controversial. And I want to put forward a disclaimer that the intent is not to downplay this initiative or to make it look in any way negative, but just to expose the reality that my country in particular faces with this initiative. So it is not every country, as you have so eloquently described, that has a governance structure that supports municipalities and cities and so on. And so the way I see it is that some countries may not be able to take advantage and to pledge their support and sign up for this particular initiative. And I'm saying that in the context that I want to offer a word of caution that in presenting initiatives to support the Global Cooling Pledge, we must ensure that no one is left behind and that the initiatives that we present can be facilitated and accommodated and benefit as much, if not all, of the parties that have signed the pledge. Because I am aware that there are some countries that this city structure is not part of the governance structure, and so they may not be able to participate in that particular facility. And so I just wanted to indicate that as a measure that in planning that we must ensure that the planning process will take into account, if not all, as much of the countries that have signed on to the pledge as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments and concerns. I think, of course, the cases of islands, small islands that have a different governance structure because you don't have so much of this, the small cities controlling. But I guess Grenada as a country can join the initiative because, you know, I think the island is smaller than São Paulo.
National Cooling Action Plan gave us a very robust framework on how to not just look at cooling as a mitigation measure, but also as an adaptation measure. When you look at Nigeria, our demography, our population, over 210 million persons, all right? And with the increasing heat waves, not just in the northern part of the country, but now we've seen it moving to the south of the country. When we did our, what's it called, our analysis, the business as usual and the mitigation scenario, and we compared how will this look like if we don't act now and act fast. The electrical appliances that will come into the country, that is in the rack sector, will double or triple by 2030. So we're doing everything possible with a lot of initiatives, not just with the National Ozone Office, also with the Energy Commission of Nigeria, combining both climate-friendly gases and also energy efficiency measures to ensure that the national grid that is already being stretched, because Nigeria, we are very big on energy consumption. All right, the national grid is already stretched, and most times we experience grid collapses. So this sustainable cooling for us is big, and we need all hands on deck, not just a few of stakeholders. We've done a lot of national stakeholders, ensuring that we do consultative processes, we consult with key stakeholders to see what do they have, to see what's their concerns on this. And most for the ministers, number one question was here, what is your key priorities for COP30? For the ministers roundtable, I will say for we Nigeria, we are looking at where we can leverage the ministers roundtable to ensure that we bring in the private sector. That's key to ensure that we have a very holistic financial mechanism in supporting the Beat the Heat initiative in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have over 36 states. For now, we have just Lagos State as a signatory when it has to do with subnationals. Lagos State signed up last COP29. The sign up, why did they sign up? when we presented this opportunity to them and we said to them, the population in Lagos is growing rapidly. The population, the immigration level is rapidly growing, and a lot of construction, urbanization. So, and so Lagos State saw that, okay, fine, well, how can we fight this urban heat? Is for them coming into the global cooling pledge, they're coming with this mindset of having to learn, number one, from developed countries that are already signatories to the pledge, to see what are the ways we can not just mitigate, but also adapt, all right? So when I went through the TOR of the IGCC TOR, I saw that there are a lot of from the working groups, there are a lot of things that we can lay out there for the subnationals to see, okay, this working group, this is what we are doing. The same way we are doing in my country. We have different working groups for the urban heat. I want to just announce to the House that the Director General of the National Council on Climate Change, who is the UNFCCC Focal Point, is the steering committee member for urban heat adaptation and also for the NCAP. So we have this thing already that we are working with most MDAs, not just MDAs, we're also with NGOs to encourage NGOs to come into this space, to fight and ensure that as long as this heat is not going, I came into Germany and I saw that Germany is so hot. This is my first time in Germany. So as heat is not going for now, but we need all hands on deck to ensure that we not just enjoy the luxury of cooling, but also to ensure that we meet our Sustainable Development Goal commitments and all the commitments of the pledge. So lastly, I also want to say that the building sector, we need to really hammer on the building sector, emphasize on the building sector, because most of the commitment from the pledge, in my country, we have this initiative where real estate developers are craving to join. They're like, well, how do we go about it? What do we do? What does it entail to be part of this movement? So we need to put it out there, do more of the advocacy programs. That's the steps, that's the next steps. Advocate more, campaign more. Already, we are doing that already in the country. But we need to ensure that we state clear steps, we define it, so that anybody that wants to join this movement will know, okay, this is what I do, and this is what I stand to benefit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nigeria. I think you brought very good comments and concerns. Also, on the action agenda for COP30, we are thinking a lot about the commitments and implementation of the commitments that the private sector has done. We totally agree with you how we're going to bring the private sector on board, especially when we think about the building and construction sectors. We all know they represent around 37% of the emissions, and depending how you build, your buildings, you would have much more emissions and energy consumption in the future. So if you do and you build it on a sustainable way, you can have a little bit extra cost here, but it will pay for itself very easily. So we need to also bring this agenda, and for our presidency, we'll have a big debate on buildings and construction too for COP30. So I'm positive that the Cooling Coalition somehow will be part of that debate. Now I give the floor to Armenia.
Thank you. Referring to the first question, I would like to ask the Armenians' key priorities is securing scaling up and predictable climate finance for national and local cooling priorities. Second, ensuring technology transfer and innovation support, including for passive cooling. Elevating sustainable cooling within the global goal on adaptation to ensure it as a cross-cutting resilience and health issue. And crucially, embedding equitable access to cooling as a social justice and public health priority in UNFCCC negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Iraq?
Thank you, Chair. We believe the topics of heat and cities is aligned with the IPCC topics, especially in IR7, which will be focusing on many topics issues. One of them, the climate and city reports. In Iraq, we are finished from preparing local adaptation plan lab, which are focused on the 6 topic cities. It's considered more affected by climate change. This lab included the special priorities for these cities according its different situation, and aim to support the local government in develop their strategies with align the national topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Iraq? Well, I don't...
Sorry, Iraq.
Iraq, oh, sorry.
Thank you.
What did I say? Yeah. Thank you, Iraq. Okay. I don't see any extra flags raising. Any extra comments? Well, so just to close the session here, I heard from most of our colleagues positive remarks about the ideas on the priorities we all debated for COP30. I think it's important we bring in the idea of these small countries and islands and a different approach to them throughout our year Beat the Heat. We're going to think about some solutions to that. I think that will be important. And also how we're going to bring the other stakeholders and the private sector in this process, especially for the evaluation of the pledges, the integration between the Cooling Coalition, Climate and Clean Air Coalition, CCAC, and also CHAMP. I think they are all interconnected, and we need to make sure that all the stakeholders working on these areas somehow coordinate the efforts so we can be more efficient on our time and the efforts we do with them. Well, so having said that, if there is no more comments, we thank everybody for the support of this proposal, and we'll get back to the board with more information as soon as we develop them. Okay, so now I give it the floor to Janai Kamata to present now on the buildings and cooling pavilion at COP30. Please, Janai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Adalbert. So, hello everyone. My name is Gennai Kamata. I work for UNEP, Cool Coalition, and also Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction. So I basically sit in the both initiatives. So that's why I'm talking a little bit about this joint pavilion at COP30 on behalf of the both initiatives. Next slide, please. So this pavilion originally initiated at COP26 by the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction as the center of the community for the building stakeholders. However, we have been also trying to mobilize and involve with other partners as well in relation to the building sector. So that's why we are trying to engage with other sectors such as the cooling sectors and energy and finance and associated industries in relation to the buildings. And since last year, COP26, we have decided to have a joint pavilion between Cool Coalition and the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, or Global ABC. And for this year as well, we are planning to have the joint pavilion, and where we involve more and more stakeholders in the building and cooling sectors. Next slide, please. And so this is just a little bit about the logistics, just to give you a sense of this pavilion. So basically, every day have the 2 sessions, which is 90 minutes, and also 4 pitch, which is also 30 minutes. So we have many sessions are ongoing within 2 weeks. And also this pavilion is open to everyone. So we of course welcome all the countries to join our pavilion. But of course, on the other hand, we invite all the non-government stakeholders such as private sectors, financial institutions, and civil societies, academia. So it's going to be a very comprehensive set of the stakeholders will presenting their experiences and effort for the cooling and building sector. And thanks to the generous sponsors, we have almost confirmed 10 sponsors at this moment. That means that it's internationally recognized as an important platform. So they are financially contributing our pavilion. And then this is, of course, it has the screens to display the slides, and also it allows online speakers to present, and it's also live streaming is available. And we will also ensure to provide some networking opportunity as well. Next slide, please. So these are the priorities of the topics that could be discussed in these pavilions. So I don't go one by one, but basically it's about so it basically talks about the important international commitments, such as, of course, the Global Cooling Pledge implementation, and also buildings breakthrough and declaration des Chaillot, which Global ABC advocates for. And in terms of the topic, of course, we will talk about passive cooling and nature-based solutions and the energy efficiency of the buildings. And so it's a comprehensive topics that we're going to discuss. And next slide, please. And finally, so this is the most important slide for the timeline towards the COP30. So we actually started communicating this pavilion through our social media and newsletters, and also mailing lists to all the countries and all the stakeholders. And so if you are interested in joining our pavilion, please feel free to join in person, on site, and also online. And if you are further interested in proposing your own session, like if you want to speak on some good experience and the best practice from your country perspective, please submit your proposal to us. I'm going to show you the link later, but basically you can present your expression of interest, also suggest some ideas, what kind of session you want to deliver in this pavilion. And towards the COP, we will promote the program and also decide on the layout of the pavilion, etc. So the last slide. So as I mentioned, if you are interested in speaking in one of the sessions in a pavilion, please access to this QR code and also the link here. I think that our team will share this presentation later, so you can just go to the site, and there is a form that you can fill in your request, your interest, ideas, and please submit that. The deadline is 30th June, so we only have 2 weeks. But actually, if you go to the Coalition website, the link is already available, so please feel free to look at that as well. So thank you very much.